Additional features of pivoting data we're going to look at here, and you can see we have a fairly large data set here with several hundred records. Now if we take a quick brief look at the titles, we're a company that sells toys. We have an invoice number, the date the order was taken. We got what the product is, how much it cost, and how the payment was made here at the end. Now we want to pivot this information to find out various bits of data to analyze. We want to first of all decide how many orders we took in total. We click anywhere in the data set, we go to the Insert ribbon and choose the first button, Pivot Table. It picks up our data set, we'll build it on a new sheet and we click OK. That gives us an empty pivot and a list of our fields down the right hand side. If you haven't already learned the basics of pivot tables, we suggest you go view the earlier video we did on an introduction to pivot tables. So everything we do from now is drag and drop down into these four boxes. We want to first of all know how many orders we took. Now we can use any field that's got text in because that will default to giving us a count. So I'm going to drag the payment field because I know that contains the words cash, check, credit card, etc. So we drag and drop payment into values. Straight away that shows us a count of payments. We took a total of 1,000 orders. I now want to know how people paid those 1,000 orders. So we can take the payment field again and drag that into the rows area. You'll see straight away it breaks it down to how much people paid by cash, check, gift card, etc. We can do something with the columns by dragging the toy company. We deal with two companies, Lego and Duplo. To break this down, we can put those two titles in the columns. So we drag and drop and it gives us our two columns of data, all of the Duplo orders and all of the Lego orders. Now as you know, it will always give you a default layout. You can adjust the column widths to change these, and one thing I would suggest you do when you create a pivot table is to go directly to the options button. You'll find this on the Analyze ribbon. This will bring up the options for the pivot table and deselect this tick box here, auto fit column widths on update. Now by taking that off, every time we open up this book, these columns will remain in this width. Otherwise, every time you open up the book or refresh the data, it's going to adjust the column widths to be auto width. We've got the data here. I now decide that I would like to see when orders were placed, a breakdown of when the order dates were. Now we can quickly restart all of this by dragging these items from here onto the sheet. You are literally pulling out the fields to start with another blank pivot. Now if you've got 2016 or 365 and above, then what happens when you drag a date field, Excel tries to be helpful and put them into what we call a grouped order. Now it's not something that's favoured by most Excel developers. So there's a little tip here. when you drag a date field down into the rows, in our case we want them in rows, you'll notice it's grouped everything by years, which I don't want. If you do an undo, either clicking on the undo button or Control Z, that will take all the information back to the original data. So we have each day that an order was placed. We then want to choose to group in ourselves, so we right click our mouse over the dates and we choose group. From the box we can now select how we want it grouped. Now you'll notice it's already highlighted the one we require. We would like to see the invoices for each month, so we leave it on the month. When we click OK, it now breaks this down into each month. We want to see how much money we earned per month. If we come across to our fields, we'll notice we have total line revenue. I'm going to drag this into values, which will calculate, and you'll see it's now given us how much money we made per month. Now at this point, we now know how much we made in January, February, March, but this isn't a single year. This is over 3 years. So what we can do is to group the dates of our invoices by another level, and we do that by right clicking over the dates again, return to group, and as well as the months we can turn on the years just by clicking. Click OK. It now gives us a breakdown of the year and the month. Now the flexibility of pivot tables is its real power, and if you have a look at the layout, it's not a very clear layout, certainly if we've got multiple years. So it may be better if we had the years going across as column titles across the top here. We can do that by coming over to our boxes over here, and you can see we got the years currently in rows. If we move this by grabbing it with the mouse, click and drag into columns, you'll now see it's changed the layout so that we have each year represented by a column, and it's a much cleaner layout. We can also look at this data in a different way. Instead of looking at the monthly sales, we may want to see how much we made per toy. So we no longer need these dates in the rows, so we can pull that out just by clicking and dragging to drag it out of the box. We can then drag the toy name field in its place and drop it in here. Immediately we see how much money we've made per toy. Now, as denoted in the introduction to pivot tables, we can change this data set here by right clicking and choosing to summarize the information by counting it if we wanted to see how many orders per toy, or the average, or the highest value, the minimum value, and so on. And that was covered in the beginners. But this also has show values as. You may prefer to look at your data as a percentage, and in here we have the percent of grand total, as well as other options. If we choose percent of grand total, you now see a percent value, and it's a much easier way to see what trending is going on with the data. You'll also notice a quick way to see that year on year we're selling less and less.